to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I ask the recording secretary for a roll call, please?
Ron Bouquet.
Here.
Brian Carson.
Here.
Jessica Decker.
Here.
Corey Homer.
Here.
Sam Lutfi.
Here.
Jack O'Leary.
Yeah.
Felicia Sheehan.
Here.
Rosemary Walsh. Here. And Donald Lutfi.
Okay, may I have a volunteer to read the mission statement?
I'll read it.
Thanks, Felicia.
Delaware Valley School District, in partnership with our community, stands committed to maximizing student potential, fostering lifelong learning, and promoting responsible citizenship.
Thanks, Felicia. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Who's the second?
I do.
Any discussion? Okay, I have discussion. On tonight's agenda, item 8A, I was asked last night to add that onto the agenda. I talked to Mr. Hessler and Bill today about this. And in order, at a voting meeting like this, in order to discuss something, we have to have a motion, we have to have a second, and then we can have discussion. If we don't have a motion, we don't have a second, we can't have discussion. That would be saved for a workshop meeting. This was a discussion that we had started with the workshop meeting, and I thought we were going to conclude it at the next one, but it seems to be that a few board members have this as a priority, so I said I would put it on here. But in order to put it on, I can't leave a number blank, and the number that should be in there, I asked Bill for today, and he said he won't have that number till October. So he said he could take an educated guess at it, but I didn't want him to do that. I thought that would be unfair to him. So I asked him to use the last best number that we had, which was last October's number. So that was my last conversation with Bill. And when you see the 7,272,719, I'm guessing that that's last year's number. That's the best number we could have at the time. That probably number will change tonight with the discussion. So it's just a number. It's the last best. It's the last most accurate number we have. If I'm saying that correctly, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, they don't have what you would need for the June 30th, 2018 financials yet. And you'll see in the board handouts that the actuary has said that, and actually the retirement system sent something that the actuaries have to rely upon that says that it hasn't been sent yet.
So that number going ahead, just so everybody knows when we get to that item, that number going ahead is most likely just a change. That's just a number so we can start a discussion. All right? So, all those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. I'll ask the Superintendent John Bell to introduce tonight's presentation.
Okay, thank you. Every year in June, we honor the top 25 students and the retirees. The top 25 students were here last week because we'll never find them this week. They're long gone after graduation. But we are, and it's a very busy time, and there's a couple different retirement parties tonight. But we say thank you to everybody who came tonight, and we're just going to recognize them real quick. Retiring as a special ed teacher at Shahola with 18 years of service is Maureen Burns. Maureen, can you just wave to everybody? So only Karen Sweeney has to speak. Retiring from the district with 34 years at Delaware Valley in high school art, Stephanie Cavallero. You can still come visit us every March. Retiring with 32 years of service in the district is Dr. Jim Purcell. Recently retired with 25 years of service, most recently in the district office, is Karen Sweeney. And another retiree who had 18 years of service at Delaware Valley And his last years, he covered the Dayton Delaware campus and the Shahola campus as a school psychologist. It's Dr. Mike Vitale. He came for the freebies and took the plant.
No, I think he's hanging out someplace.
Oh, he's probably talking to somebody. Kim, and another one that we're honored, but she took off. She has an 1.5-hour drive home from work every day, so she took off right after we had the snacks. And that's she's a bookkeeper here in the district office. She's retiring next month, and that's Kim DeAndrea with 29 years of service to Delaware. All total up there this year between administration, faculty, and staff, there are 21 retirees with a total of 514 years of service to Delaware. Isn't that amazing? 514.
Wow.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're very appreciative. Certainly, we have mixed emotions. I'm sure you do too. You okay, Seth? Yeah. We're happy for you. We're a little bit envious for you, but we can't say thank you enough for what you've done for our kids, and that's what it really meant. That's what it comes down to. Well, thank you very much.
I'd just like to say thank you for teaching my children, dealing with my children. And Jim, over the course of 19 years, you have taught me so much, and you have been so patient with my ignorance. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great retirement.
You know, when I came to this district, my daughters were in school. I had 2 young daughters. It's so nice with the music.
Fade off. I'm gonna count the years I didn't live here. That never happened.
I gotta say, I walked into the old Delaware Valley Elementary School over here about, I guess it was 6-7 years ago now. Because my oldest daughter's in 6th grade. And I was just amazed at the facility. I thought it was such a great place. And then I heard they were tearing it down and building something better. And I was really amazed. But then I got involved with the school here, and I got on the school board, and I started meeting the teachers that were here. And I've never seen people with dedication like you, you know? I mean, I always use Dr. Schaefer as an example here, because we put a reading program in one night, and she was so enthused about this reading program. And yet, I see that same enthusiasm in all the teachers that come in here every month and when I'm around the different schools. So, you know, it's a great thing for a parent like me to see that I'm sending my daughters to this school because I never had the opportunity to go to a school like this in my life. So it really means a lot to me. So, and I don't know any of you personally, but I know you all share that same dedication, and I thank you for that, because when I see these kids, I'm sitting here tonight because I want to try to do my little part to help children, you know, to do something to give children the opportunity that I didn't have, and to give my daughters the opportunities that I didn't have. And you actually give our children the things that I never had, you know, so that's what I want to thank you for your dedication, all your years that you gave to this district. Thank you.
And Jim, we go way back many years. And one of the most outstanding features of your commitment to this district is you always have the answer. And if you don't have the answer, you go and research and you'll come back with the answer. I have always appreciated that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate all of you. You can stay always.
I'm gonna keep calling them for the answers.
I will definitely be calling him about this. I already asked him if he's available for consultation on the VOTEC, you know, the CPE.
And you just said we can't pay them, so it's even better. So.
Well, as a tradesman, Tim, I just gotta say, what I've seen you do with the setup for the CTA has been, again, we talk about the opportunity we give these children, and the things you've done behind the scenes, and I know about these things because I'm a tradesman. It's just, these children will have an opportunity that I just hope they understand what a great opportunity, and your work on the CTE and the VOTEC over the last couple of years now that we've been putting it together is what's laid the groundwork for these children to have that opportunity. You and I both know what a great opportunity it is.
It was a real learning experience. Coming from the elementary,
Like when I came up to the secondary, they asked me hey, do you know about Perkins? I said, yeah, it's a restaurant down the road. I didn't know anything about it. So it was a wonderful learning experience, especially, for me. And I got to learn a lot and was working with great people at the high school, and that has helped because, the team they have behind you and that works with you was wonderful. I mean, that's the thing I've experienced in the district. I've been here since 1986. I've been in administration since '89, and it's been wonderful. And I think back to all I learned from Sonia Cole, when I worked there, and working with Joe Caramonica, that was a great experience. And then working with the elementary principals that are sitting around this table, and with Dr. Schaefer, we all learned together, and worked hard. And now the guys at the high schools and the middle school. That's an awesome team that you have at the secondary level. So I'm definitely going to miss it, but it's time.
Well, I'm seeing you with the plant, and I'm saying to myself, you planted some really great seeds over there at the CD, so I hope you come back when it's flowering. I see it.
Oh, I'll be back even during the construction. I'm going to keep an eye.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, that's one thing too that I wanted to point out. What makes this district so great is, the faculty, staff, administrators do for the students, but what you do for the newer people coming in to replace and things like that, the newer administrators like Jim working with Mr. Mitchell over there and getting him up to par and working with the teachers coming up. The students they can cruise right along, and that's great, because if there's any bump in the road for the students, that can get them off track so easily. But the sustainability of this district is because of the mentorship opportunities that you all have provided. So thank you for that.
Thanks. Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
One of the beautiful things about my position and Mary's position is that we have the ability to work with people all over the school district, and every person who is here tonight, I have had the honor to work with and have had a wonderful relationship with. Maureen Burns is not only a teacher of multiple disabilities support children, she's also a gifted teacher. She doesn't work with children who are gifted, but she is an absolutely gifted teacher. To see her work with children is a miraculous thing. Mike Vitale came here with me actually, has been a school psychologist extraordinaire. He has been a mentor to many of our other school psychologists, and we are carrying on that moving forward because hopefully tonight, if everything goes well, you will be hiring his son, who is the son of Dr. Vitale and his wife, Dr. Vitale. So we have amazing people, parents that his son is going to be following. Karen, I have worked with you for several years now. Carol's got big shoes to fill. You are an amazing worker. You are absolutely wonderful. Stephanie has been a part of Special Olympics and helping us. So the great thing about special ed is we get to be involved in everything, and we have a great communication with everybody. So congratulations to all of you. I wish you well, and you guys rock. Thank you.
This is for you.
And Jim Purcell, sorry, Jim.
I got it. I know, I was so ready to tease you.
I knew I would blow it up all around the room.
If you don't mention it, he has to stay.
Well, thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you all.
Sure. No, I shut the sound off.
Thank you again.
All right, see you later.
Thank you. Can we do the music again?
That was perfect.
Is that it for them?
That's it for presentations, yes.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting held on May 17th, 2018, and the special meeting on June 7th, 2018.
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can we take a time out? We do have another presentation, sorry.
Yep.
The health occupation students, HOSA, is hiding out in the back.
Okay, can I just, hearing no objection, the motion carries. Go ahead. All yours.
Okay, Bart.
Good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. Health Occupation Students of America Future Health Professionals State Conference was scheduled for March 7th to 9th. After digging out of the first storm and making it down here to the campus on Monday, met with Dr. Bell, who said, if you don't get out of here by tomorrow, Tuesday, you're not going to make it, because the second storm was expected Wednesday morning. Went back to the classroom, made phone calls, contacted everybody who I could contact. We had a 31-member delegation scheduled. We were going to take whoever it was who was able to dig out. And about an hour after the final arrangements were made to leave on Tuesday, found out that the conference was canceled outright. Not postponed, canceled. After that, the state organization, which is wonderful, took on the exhaustive task of figuring out how to pull together some kind of competition so that Pennsylvania could have a delegation at nationals. And they did, and that consisted of online testing, FedExing presentations to Lebanon, which is where the state organization is held, and uploading video presentations onto YouTube. A couple weeks later, judging had been completed, and we were able to tune into a YouTube channel in the classroom on the morning of April 16th for a virtual awards ceremony, which we all came to with bagels and orange juice at the ready and had our own little award ceremony. Given all that, we still, the Delaware Valley delegation, got 11 medals. So 11 of us and I are headed to Dallas, Texas on Tuesday. So our winners are.
Hi, my name is Colin Kwan Hemler, and I participated in the medical reading event. And I'm a senior, so I'll be going to Haverford College in the fall.
My name is Vanessa Van Duzer. I was in veterinary science and I won first place gold medal.
I'm Pamela Larry. I was on the public service announcement team. We won bronze, and I'm going to Slippery Rock University in fall.
I'm Savannah Roller. I'm on the public service announcement team. We won bronze, and now I'm a senior.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Collins. I'm on the public service announcement team as well. And I just graduated also.
And we are missing tonight because in order to be off for next week, they had to work all this week. Lizzie Dillon, silver medal in healthy lifestyle. Chrissy Nagrowski, gold medal, medical law and ethics. Victoria Sazanoff-Smith, gold in medical assisting. And the medical innovation existing team of Stephanie Borges, Flora Trost, and Ashley Wilson, bronze. Leaving Tuesday, coming back Sunday morning.
Good luck. Hope it doesn't snow.
It was 104 there today. So I'm watching.
Quickly.
Yeah, I was on a military base the entire time, but it was pretty cool. I mean, the weather was
I
nice.
was down there was actually my senior year at HOSA down in Dallas, Texas. And so start drinking water now. Get hydrated. But HOSA, excellent organization, very high standards, which is very nice to see. And you'll take these skills on with you forever.
Absolutely.
So it's great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Those of you going off to college, what are your majors, if you have them?
I'm interested in sociology, I think, but still a little undecided.
I'm interested in zoology, which is a little bit different, but
I'm a public health major, so.
Just nursing major.
Just nursing.
Anybody deal with possible concussion?
My alley.
It's really, really, really impressive, you know, to see what you do. Congratulations on your awards and really hard work for it. good-looking Dallas, like always, just drink lots of water. And they Tornado Alley, so. They say tornadoes coming, there's a tornado coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I knew what you
Right up through it. This is a beautiful state. Okay. Yeah, we did that. Okay, reports, student, well, there's no student representatives, administrative, aesthetic. Are there any comments on the administrative reports or the attendance report? Okay, I have a comment on that. Monday, I asked John to, if he could just shoot me the attendance for our schools. And I just gotta say that they were, they were very impressive, very impressive, I'll tell them that. The first one I looked at just happened to be my daughter's school, Delaware Valley Elementary, and it was like 94% attendance, This is the day I heard so many people wouldn't be sending their children to school. The attendance reports were really impressive for the 3 days that we're adding on to an extra week. So I just happened to be talking to Mrs. Olson on a separate issue Monday morning, and I said to her, I know that there's something great going on in your school, because when you see reports like that and when you see attendances throughout the district, there's a reason parents are sending their kids here, and there's a reason the kids want to come here on days like that. So again, to the staff of schools and to the teachers and to all the people that do these things for our children, I really express my gratitude, because my children are in this too. So thank you. Are there any comments on the financial reports? Okay, superintendent's report, Dr. John Bell.
Okay, thank you. I have 7 things, but they're quick, I promise. First, I just wanted to say publicly congratulations on us getting the clean audit from the state auditor general. So Bill and his staff deserve congratulations for that.
A lot more people. It takes everybody, trust me. Top to bottom.
No, you're a good leader.
I also just wanted to officially say congratulations to the class of 2018. It was a great ceremony, so everybody could make it. I appreciate it. It was nice. It wasn't too hot, and we didn't have to worry about rain. Usually it's one or the other, so it was just the perfect temperature.
It was a beautiful night. The kids were amazing.
That sun, just so we noted, that sun goes down over the mountain at exactly 7:40.
Is that what it was? I also just wanted to say congratulations to everybody in the district. Last Sunday was the Grading Our Schools edition of the Scranton Times Tribune, and I think you all have a copy in there for you to take home with you. Again, 4 districts exceeded state averages on every single measure. I think it's 18 different measures. It was Abington Heights, us, Wayne Highlands, and Crestwood. So Dallas was with us last year as one of the 4. They dropped out this year, and they've had their issues with the strike, et cetera. And then, but Wayne Highlands, one of our neighbors, took their place. So 4 districts did it again this year. So we're really, really proud about that. I had the opportunity to be down at Shippensburg University last night and this morning to partake in the Keystone Boys State, which is hosted, and Girl State is there as well. It's hosted by the American Legion. It's a great leadership week. It's a free week. You're on a college campus. You learn a little something about discipline. You learn a little something about the military, and you learn a ton about law and civics. And so I got to go around. There's 8 different cities. The kids are divided up in 8 different cities, and they're make-believe names that are modeled after 8 cities in Pennsylvania, and they call it the state of Keystone. And then they have to solve all these problems and to create draft ordinances and laws and have a budget. Really fascinating stuff. In the next year, in that program, they're going to offer anybody that goes through the week-long program, they can register for AP Government, and if they do the accompanying work with it, they'll get an automatic 5 score, which is the highest score you can get on AP Gov, US Gov. So that's going to be a big boom. But it was a great opportunity. I got to speak to all 225 of them this morning for about an hour on leadership and leadership development. Great kids, amazing. And I asked them, raise your hands if you're applying to an Ivy. Raise your hand if you're applying to a service academy. It was unbelievable how many of them raised their hand for one or both times. It was just an opportunity. We had 3 boys and 3 girls down there participating. So we're going to continue to try to get more and more kids involved, and it's for rising seniors from all across the Commonwealth. So it's really a great opportunity. The next thing was the student handbook. Remember I told you I would find out when middle school student handbooks had to go to print. So they have to go to print June 26th. So then I think what we could do is we could approve them as is, and then we could, over the summer, we can make whatever changes you want, and then we can do the addendum, like you guys had suggested last time, because we didn't be able to turn it around by the 26th, what we can do, just like you guys said. The sixth thing is, if you haven't given Corey my evaluation, please give it to him. It looks like we might actually be done by June 30th for the first time in 6 years, that we can have it all done. So if you didn't give it to him tonight, if you could just scan it and email it to him. So let him compile it for us. And then the packet is aplenty tonight. So I just wanted to tell you what's in this folder tonight. You guys had asked for a variety of different things last week and during the week. So the first one is the 10-year history of expenditures and tax increases that John, I think, had asked about. The next packet is information about lunches and breakfast. And then there's also a handout about the National School Lunch Program, a nice like FAQ, and it has a lot of links too if you want to know more about the National School Lunch Program. That's the green and white and red paper. And Felicia had asked some questions about one of the resignations and about OPEB and about the athletic budget. So those answers that I shared with her are in here, so you all have a copy of that, okay? And then the large packet with the 3-ring hole punch. That is the latest and greatest version of the budget based on the budget work session last week. So that can go into your binder to give you the most recent version. And then the next packet says Conrad Siegel on top of it. And that's information about OPEB from our firm. What do we call them, Bill? Conrad Siegel is the consultant. Actuaries, okay. So that's all information about OPEB. And then there's a very nice letter from one of our retirees who couldn't make it tonight. But she wrote a really lovely letter to the board about all her years here at Elmwood Valley. And then I think it's just the minutes, and that's it. But just so you know what all those piles, as Chuck Pike would say, we're killing plenty of trees. And, okay. And that's all 7 things. Thank you.
May I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion to accept the bills for payments, which include the general fund, cafeteria fund, capital reserve fund, and 2017 construction fund?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. Okay. Items for approval. We got a ton of items for approval. A, B, and C are the meat of what we're here for tonight, the budget. Should I just go ahead and do D through everything and we do the? Is that okay?
Yeah.
It's all right, John?
Okay.
Okay. Letter D, may I have a motion for the approval of additional volunteers, see attachment? Motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion to rescind the approval of the Social Studies AP World Studies textbook, The Earth and Its People, A Global Perspective?
Second.
Any discussion? Yeah.
We found out after we picked the new book that they're going to change the curriculum in a year. So we were going to just stay with our book for 1 more year, and then when the curriculum changes, there'll probably be a new text. Thankfully, they told us before we ordered them. Can't believe it took that long, but.
Do we still do the review of the books? So
Yeah.
that didn't come up during the review about the curriculum. It's interesting.
Because they didn't tell us what, after we had already picked the book and everything, because our book was old, Then they
The
announced,
teachers are involved in review, or is it just the administrators?
We got an email from College Board after all that was done, that College Board is the one changing.
Oh, okay.
so we put a halt
Okay,
on
I gotcha.
our
Yes,
purchase
okay.
because we don't know what
That's
it'll look
fine.
like and if it'll match the book we picked.
Yeah.
or if it'll make a new-
Okay, thank you.
We got lucky that they got it just in time.
All those in favor say, oh, sorry, is there any other further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of board policies 829, electronic signatures, and policy number 917, parental/family involvement.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, any discussion? I apologize. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of the selection of depositories 1 through 9? Number 1, NBT Bank. Number 2, Citizens Bank of PA. Number 3, Wells Fargo. Number 4, Wayne Bank. Number 5, Dime Bank. Number 6, M&T Bank. Number 7, Bank of America. Number 8, Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust. Number 9, Pennsylvania School District Liquid Asset Fund.
Motion. Second.
Any discussion?
Why do we have so many banks?
For most of them in the area, all of them in the area, because when I do my CD quotes, I give them all a chance.
Okay.
The other ones are the government investment trust, where some of the money gets filtered through from the state. And the one had the long grandfather debt, long time ago, they gave us a proposal which had to do with beating the state to something that's still on our books of grandfather debt if we ever go back and try and retrieve it, so.
So do we actually have CDs through each of these banks, or it's just so that you can?
It depends who, I mean, they're competitively bid. Wayne and Dime generally beat everybody.
Right.
But they do, every once in a while you do have, and sometimes banks can only take so much, meaning they can't take all of the investments, but they'll take a portion.
Any further discussion?
One other topic on that, the tax collectors sometimes pick which bank they put their tax accounts in, then the money gets transferred to our account, so, whatever.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. Letter H, may I have a motion for the approval of submission of grant applications 1 through 10? Number 1 is Title I for $596,366. Number 2 is Title II for $115,039. Number 3 is Title IV for $44,978. Number 4 is IDEA for $691,022. Number 5 is IDEA pass-through rider YY 619 funds for $1,980. Number 6 is federal impact aid for $718,000. Number 7 is medical assistant access for $183,000. Number 8 is Perkins grant for $43,733. Number 9 is the pre-K counts grant for $280,500. And number 10 is Ready to Learn block grant for $728,801. Motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you for all your hard work on
Really,
Absolutely.
this is
this, all preparation.
a lot of money sitting on the table here.
Is this money that we're definitely gonna get, or is this the grant and we're waiting to find out if we get it?
The only thing that's outstanding that we're not sure about is pre-K counts. All the others are the established grant funds that we're expecting. They always readjust in February, so you always see a change, but those are it's the proposed budget from the federal programs.
Things are looking good with the budget, so there's a good chance
In Pennsylvania.
good chance you'll get it.
And the state
One-
funding
and more.
might change depending on what happens with the budget.
Yeah, 1 through 8 are federal and 9 and 10 are state.
Federal impact aid is always a question mark.
Yeah.
Right.
There was something that got about, talking about Safe Schools grant.
Mhm.
Did we apply for that in the past, or were,
That's brand new.
that's brand
That,
new?
the one that just came out, there's gonna be 60 million. So we're excited about that. So And but the House approved it, we're waiting, the Senate probably won't approve it on Monday. I'm thinking the Senate won't get it all done tomorrow, but what I heard this afternoon was they should approve it Monday.
So that would be something that we'll apply for.
That we'll, yeah, we're gonna see how they dole it out. They haven't provided any regulations or guidance on it yet.
Hope they go back a little.
Yeah,
It
we got
never
it.
seems to work that way
I
for
know, we
us.
never get that
We
lucky.
keep up with things,
Yeah,
but
no, you don't get rewarded.
You
It
don't
looked
get
like there were
rewarded.
things.
But we have plenty of things on our
Yes.
list.
Like that, like,
so-
you already have them, you get the money?
no,
I don't know, were Gates on the list? Yeah.
We'll see. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of the district insurance coverage from July 1st, 2018, through June 30th, 2019, items 1 to 9. Item 1, commercial property, general liability, automotive, crime, law enforcement, CM Regent, Granite State Insurance, American Alternative Insurance, $154,926. 2, boiler and machinery. It's the Hartford Steam Boiler Inspection and Insurance Company, $8,277. 3, it's the Umbrella Excess. CM Regent / American Alternative Insurance for $27,826. Workman's Compensation. University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, $499,878. Errors and omission. CM Regent, $36,824. Privacy and network cyber liability. Ace American Insurance, CM Regent, $9,470. Co-curricular accident liability renewal, August 15th, 2018. U.S. Fire Insurance, AG Admin, and CM Regent for $96,504. Pollution legal liability, Iron Shore Specialty Insurance, $9,040.35 per year, 3 years, which would be 19 year, 1920, and 2021. Second. Oh, sorry. That's it. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Did we get a motion?
We have one now, yes.
Okay, any second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of type A school lunch costs for the 2018-2019 school year at the same rates as the 2017-2018 year as follows. Elementary, $2. Middle and high school, $2.25. Adult, $3.50, and milk, 50 cents.
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of school breakfast program for the 2018-2019 school year at the same rates as the 2017-2018 year as follows. Breakfast will be $1.25, adults $2, milk 50 cents.
Motion.
second.
Any discussion?
Just that, Justin's doing a great job. I mean, if you look at the counts and the percentage of students buying and doing things, I mean, it looks like he's doing an excellent
It's
job.
moving in the right
It
direction for
does,
sure.
absolutely. Another thing too, while we're on this, is just the number of free and reduced lunches is amazing. How it's gone up over the last several years. It really is. So,
And it has continued to do that ever since the recession.
Right.
You know, it just keeps creeping
Yeah.
in that direction.
So Jim, has that increase, you usually have the answer, has that increase affected our grant status in any way yet? No, to the positive note,
To the negative this year.
okay.
But it catches up once it's
Yeah.
not, it's based on the census. Our title grants are based on the census, not on free and reduced lunch. So it will eventually, but it hasn't yet.
And our issues, we're never, no matter who you compare us to, we don't look poor. You know, so it doesn't help us. You know, even our neighbors in Wallenpaupack are over 50% free and reduced, and we're down around 30. So I mean, so right there, and you don't think of them as being, you know, when you think of four schools, you don't think of them, but they're over 50% free and reduced.
Our local food pantries have never had a greater need. They're expanding because of that need. So I'm sure we're seeing the results of all of that too.
Across the board.
Yeah.
Did we ever figure out how to put protein with the whole wheat donut?
Yes, they do. They do. Donut's only part of that meal.
I was talking to a couple of cafeteria workers the other night at a retirement dinner. And they said they're offered fruit, they get milk, there's a juice, it's not just, here's a muffin, you walk out the door. But there is more to it than just a muffin.
If you read the little green sheet, it tells you.
Through the school lunch program, you don't, protein is not a requirement.
I realize that, but that's me.
Well, I'd just like to say,
That's crazy.
as part of this as part of this discussion in the work session, I did say that if the board members want to form a committee on this and start working towards this, because I hear about lunches and meals and prices and food a lot, just come forward, give me your name. So far, no one has wanted to do that, but it's open. Okay. So, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of the student handbook? See the attachments, we have them here. Motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of concurrent enrollment agreements, Delaware Valley School District and Lackawanna College from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019.
Motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of the contracts of affiliation 1 through 6 between the Delaware Valley High School and Milford Senior Care, Delaware Valley High School and Belle Reeve Senior Living, Delaware Valley High School and Green Trees ELC, Delaware Valley High School and Mountain View School for Early Childhood, Delaware Valley High School and the Center for Development Disabilities, number 6, Delaware Valley High School and Sunshine Station.
So moved.
I have clarification though. What I printed out off the website says Good Shepherd Child Development Center, but you read Green Trees. Is that?
They changed.
Oh, so it's the
They've changed their name.
Same people, different
Gotcha,
place.
thank you.
And that goes back to the food pantry thing. They've expanded the food pantry at the church, so they kind of bumped them out and they had to move up to where the Muir House used to be.
Any discussion?
I just always like to clarify the fact that this is a position, this contract of affiliation is students are sent to these, whether it be, the nursing homes or childcare centers, so that those students can get the experience of working and its observations and working with the kids and everything for their early childhood and through the CTE program through HOSA. So there's no money that changes hands. I've always abstained, and I do the same tonight, but it's not there's no monetary.
No, I asked to see all the contracts last year. I was very satisfied, but I had to ask. I'm just that kind of a guy. Any discussion?
And because of that, I won't abstain.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstains?
Abstention.
Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion to accept the acknowledgement of the completion of the induction process for the following: Anthony Bergman, Margaret Boccio, Shelby Bodnar, Michelle Puccini. God, I hope I'm saying these names right.
Put her on in the balcony.
Kate Cronin, okay, that's an Irish name, all right. Emily Kondracki, Jenna Mitchell, Stephanie Osborne, Dana Yamaka, thank you. Alexis Polanis, Jessica Polanis, Kevin Quinn, Jessica Ramos, Ashley Desorario, As.
Yep, you're good.
Yeah. And Alicia Thomas Covey. Motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is just the end of their first year as teachers. The induction process starts with the hire and new teaching orientation last August, and then they go through a whole first year. They've survived the toughest year of their career, and it's starting from scratch.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. Got no names. May I have a motion to accept the recommendation for tenure for the following: Justin Bowman, Elizabeth Caden, Ann Fagan, Erin Farley, Marissa Gallick Avery, Jesse Jane, Amanda Lawson, Cassandra Martin, Samantha Novitsky, Casey Poor, Chelsea Ryder, and Caitlin Scott.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
These are, now they finished their third year. They're getting their tenure after 3 years of successful teaching.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. Congratulations to those teachers. May I have a motion for the expulsion of student 2017-2018 1004281 for the remainder of the 2017-2018 school year?
Motion.
Second.
There's no discussion on this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval to extend/renew listing agreement number 16-773 with Chant Realtors from July 1, 2018 through December 31, 2018 for the front portion of the Rialto property located at Route 6 and 209.
Motion.
Any discussion?
I was going through the paperwork that you gave us back in January or February, and there was a discussion about splitting the property into two pieces. Are we trying to sell it as one piece, or?
Right now, it's just listed as 8 plus or minus acres. And the
Okay.
board had decided that let's leave it at that. If someone wants to come pitch an idea, instead of changing it first before we head into customers,
Okay.
let's wait and see if anybody comes to the forefront that may have an interest, and we'll go from there. But we told the dealer that we were willing to listen to any kind
Any kind
of
of.
opportunities there.
Any discussion? Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. Number 9, personnel items. May I have a motion to approve the personnel items, including resignations, appointments, child rearing leaves, and extension of bereavement, with the retirement resignations accepted with regret? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. Okay, now we have to go back to number 8, items for approval. May I have a motion for the approval of the transfer of $7,272,719 from PISA's committed fund balance to OPEB GASB 75 committed fund balance? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Open to discussion.
Yeah, I would like to begin by saying that we have a history of wanting to review things before we put them on the agenda and vote on them. I've had this in front of me for 69 minutes before the meeting started. So I just don't see, based on how we have proceeded for the 3 years that I've been on the board, that this would certainly break that precedent to put something that I think needs some real review on the agenda on such short notice.
I agree with Brian on this one. I mean, I just haven't had time to review it. We got it so early. I don't know what time we got it on the agenda. I think there's just something of this impact. I think we should just work it out in the work session. I don't see how it, I guess. But I think that we can pass the budget without having to do this right now.
I think we're taking the OPEB out of the budget. And I think that this warrants a discussion before we do that, to understand how we're going to fund those future retirees' health insurance. So, and by doing this, we would ensure that we have that money set aside for the future, and we would meet that liability. I do have a question, because the 7.27 million, that does not include that doesn't take into account the 835 that's set to be transferred in October though. So that number should be lower.
It depends. There was discussion at prior meetings as to what the board was gonna decide upon that, and I believe the discussion was that the full board would more likely have an opportunity to review after the 17-18 financials are done, which is why that is typically done in October, so the board has the educational to see where we ended with 17-18, but if we have a surplus, I'm really concerned we're not gonna get to our revenues this year, I know.
But in our current budget, we have the page 38.
I understand that, but we traditionally never move that money until the final results of the fiscal year were done. And
Right.
so,
And I'm not saying that we would do that today.
Right.
I'm just saying that we should be taking that into account, that, I mean, it doesn't look like we're overspent due to by that amount in the budget this year, that we are going to have that 835 in October, which means that the number that we would actually have to move is less than the 7.2.
That's probably why you would want to do it all at once, because then you would have real numbers of what are you up against? I mean, we have issues with this budget. The budget we're currently in, we have issues. Our revenues we're gonna miss our revenues by 6 digits. So we're hoping that.
we don't know yet.
Yeah, so we're really hoping that we will be okay on the expenditure side to offset it.
It's too early. I mean, I keep saying about the delinquent net.
Yeah. No, you're right. No, you're right. None of this, all this is too early.
Right. The delinquent tax number, every year I say it, and you guys probably get sick of hearing it. I do not know the delinquent tax number until after June 30th ends. I did ask for an update after May 31st. And we need to come in with close to $600,000 just in the month of June in order to hit that budget number. And there's some other budget numbers that are flexible too. So I mean, I know the board's talked at length about there's always the surplus in revenues and even in the expenses, but I believe the board needs to see the final results of 17-18 to make a better educated judgment for what to do with the money in October. So yeah, Jess, it is budgeted for there.
Right.
But the results, even this year, are gonna be different. I think that's why John brought it up a couple of meetings ago, or last meeting, I don't remember, in May, that we may need to be careful if we're gonna not continue, we're not gonna raise taxes to continue to fund OPEB.
But we are funding OPEB. We are funding our current obligations.
No, I got that. I'm
Right,
sorry.
but-
Correct. To continue the liability of that.
Right.
Then we also have to be careful of having any monies left for any capital needs. And of course, now when you talk capital needs, when the board or administration, anybody wants a capital project done, if we don't have a surplus to put the money into capital, you're gonna have to charge more expenses to the taxpayers for closing costs and interest costs if in fact you're still gonna replace your boilers and roof down the road. So I think that's why we don't wanna spend taxpayers' money unwisely, so we gotta be careful. And if we're not gonna continue to fund that liability, it may be very wise for the board to consider moving that to capital, knowing that we're gonna need boilers and roofs. But again, that decision can wait till October like it traditionally does, because it would help the board be more educated after we get the results of 17-18. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Sorry, go ahead.
We asked for guidance with 3 budgets. The first budget, 3-point-something, contained $890,000 of OPEB funds. The second budget, for 1.5 increase, included $490,000, I believe, of OPEB funds. And the guidance for the 0% budget included no OPEB funds. Now what's happening is I am receiving texts, emails, and so forth from former board members, from people in the community who are saying that we are not funding OPEB. And that upsets me. We have always funded OPEB, and the money is there for OPEB. What this money that we are taking out, in my opinion, appears to be an overfunding of OPEB.
Yeah, we made that very
And-
clear at the meeting, so if the ones that are texting you that are ill-informed, then.
Well, I'll pass it down to you to read.
Well, the
because-
problem is in the dispatch, it was stated that we were cutting retiree benefits because they didn't understand the conversation. It was incorrect on front
So I
page.
think it's important while the press is here and while people are, hopefully watching from
That's a good
home.
point, that's a good point.
Yes, that we are funding OPEB. The question is, how are we going to continue funding it in the future? For 10 years now, we've always managed to fund it. And rather than be accused of not funding and meeting our committed fund balance, I like the idea of having a very specific fund that is for that purpose. I mean, this is for our staff. This is required by law and something we have to do. So if it's in a specific fund and we can't overfund it, we can't underfund it, we just have to fund it according to what school code says. So I'd like to have discussion about the options. We kind of touched on that option last week as far as a possible trust or a pass-through account. I'm fine with either, knowing that we are sending a message, yes, we are funding OPEB. And especially with what's happening across the state with our Auditor General, he's going in and cleaning out, accounts that do overfund. And we never want to get to that category. If there's one fund we overfunded, I would like for it to be OPEB. Because I experienced what happened when we quadrupled our population and all of a sudden we had to hire a lot of staff. So I don't have a problem having a little bit of extra cushion in there if that is permitted. I realize the state is saying you don't go above 20%, but that's still our option, I believe. So I just need I'm glad we clarified that we are funding it. We are trying to decide how we're going to fund it next year. And I think we need to open up that discussion as to what our options are. Since we haven't funded it this way in the past, and we've never taken money out of OPEB, we've always followed your suggestion as to what you believe should be put in it. But we, the board, were not the ones who suggested taking out that money as part of this budget process. I think some members were considering a line itemization process. Others had other suggestions. So I would like to have that discussion. And if we have to put everything on hold then for the future, I'm fine, but I'm not going to put anything on hold until I hear about, for me personally, until I hear what these options are.
But we are still funding the actual liability in the proposed budget. That's still being funded. That's being funded through the operating. What
Well,
we're
not the
not
liability
funding
on the
is the
books, though.
liability. Right,
Right.
right. That's what, so I think that was probably where people didn't understand.
And I think for me, if we put this, if we get closer to what our obligation is, and I don't think, personally, I don't think that we need to decide tonight whether we're doing a trust or just leaving it in committed funds, because I do think that may be a discussion that we have in October. But I think that regardless, I think the money is staying in committed funds, whether it's in committed funds for OPEB or committed funds for PSERS, the money is staying here for the time being. But this allows us to decide whether we do the trust and decide that we're going to, use the interest off of that trust to future fund each year. But at the very least, I think that if we decide not to do the trust, then it needs to be a pass-through account whereby instead of putting, so Bill, what are we paying this year for our current retirees in this budget?
That's actually something that gets determined during the summer, but that's when I said it's typically between.
I think 450 and 600, you said. So let's say 525.
Okay.
So when we know that it's going to be 525, I mean, we're going to budget that amount in that budget, but that, to me, that money needs to be paid out of the committed fund balance, and then in October, when we do our transfers, that's when we should transfer that money back into it, so we see exactly what's going in and out of that account,
Okay.
and we know exactly what we're funding.
On that scenario, if we have no surplus, so then you'd be saying, well, we want to take the 525, and what we currently have in there will be used every year, and you're going to deplete the.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
You can't have it both ways. I mean,
Why?
how is the money, if you start to, I'm
I'm not
saying you
depleting
can.
anything, I'm saying that we would keep that same amount. So whatever we take out of it is what we're putting back into it.
What, there's no surplus?
Well, we're not using a surplus, we're going to, whatever that amount is going to be built into our general fund. So that we can then transfer it at the end of the year.
So you have $500,000 and then the following year increases, you need that $500,000
Right, but you
again.
would, right, but you're, when you're doing your budget, you have a general idea of what you think our current retirees' health, like you have an idea of what you think it's going to be for next year, which is the number that you're putting in the budget for health insurance.
We
So-
expense it and we cover it.
Exactly, so whatever that number is, would still be in the general fund, but then we pay for it out of committed funds, and then you transfer that money back into the committed fund balance at the end, in October.
Well, where's that transfer at the end of the year? I mean, if you're using that for those retirees, you're gonna take your 6.5.
That's what I'm saying, is we're not, if you pay for it out of the committed funds.
You need 500,000 every year, say, for example.
Right.
If you're saying take it out of that fund, the commitment, then
Right.
each year it's gonna go from 6.5 down to
But we're
6 to
putting-
5.5.
but we're putting that money
And you
back
can
in.
do that, don't get me wrong. But then your liability, when you're covering the unfunded liability, like traditionally has been done, is not occurring anymore. And the board has the right to do that, yes.
I think what she's trying to say is she wants to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, completely fund OPEB, max it out. Then for next year, we say, okay, $890,000. We put that in as a line item into the budget, into the healthcare. $890,000 we're gonna pay out to the retirees. If we don't use 890, say we use 700,000, you'd have 190 left over at the end of the year, and transfer that 190 into the savings, into the OPEB account, into the committed fund. If the reverse happens, and instead of 890, we use $1 million even, you'd need 110,000. You would take that out of the committed funds and transfer it into the general fund.
But the current budget that's on the table right now to be approved has zero. The 890 is history.
Right.
And it's just this board decided they didn't want to continue, not to fund the expense. The retirees' expense is covered. They didn't want to continue to grow the covered liability. That's going to drive out 13 to 15 million.
And I think that's exactly what she wants to do, exactly what we're doing right here, with the exception of move the money from PESers into OPEB, so at least one of our funds are fully funded.
Well, you need to come up with 890 every year. And right now, next year's got zero. And I'm just saying, if there's no surplus,
Right,
then
but
there's
we
nothing to
put,
replace it.
we get 890 in the budget, under a line item in the general fund right now.
1819, it's zero.
But I'm talking about for next year, in next year's budget, what our,
1819.
right, so for 1819, I'm talking about, if you tell me that what we need for 1819 to pay for our current retirees for next year is $550,000. So I'm saying you still put that as a line item in the general fund budget, but we pay for it out of the committed fund balance, and then you transfer that money back in because it's a line item in the budget.
I don't know.
So just like we have pass-through funds,
Somebody help me. Where am I missing? If you use it to pay for the retirees, how is it getting replenished?
we would transfer it back in the following October.
With what?
If it's a line item in the budget, then we're budgeting for that money.
Listen, how are we
It's
paying,
semantics.
how are we paying for these people that are retiring right now? How are we gonna pay for their,
We pay an amount of money into the trust every month. There's so many current employees, there's so many retired employees. And that's what you estimate the expense.
this year, for all the retirees?
It's in your health insurance line item.
That's what Jessica's talking about, that line item.
It's there.
It's
And the
there.
retirees are in it.
Right, so it's there, that's what she's saying.
So why can't we separate the retirees
Because the
from
expense
current?
goes, it's gone. It goes to the trust to pay for the medical bill. What am I missing?
I see what she's saying is taking the money from PESers, fully funding OPEB, okay? When you're paying for this current year, the new budget, when you're paying for their retirement benefits, you're taking that out of that fund that's now fully funded.
That's
You've still got
$500,000
the money in your operating budget, in your line item, but that's your best guess. So now you're pulling down So if you only pull down 500,000 and you budgeted 550,000, you're now transferring 500,000 back into the fund. So you've got $50,000 extra in your operating at the end of the year. Am I saying this right? On the reverse of that, if you budget 550 and you wind up pulling down 625, you're going to be short,
Right.
and you're going to have to move additional money over to maintain 100%. Now, what I'm reading from wherever he is, that Conrad guy, this is also, sorry, it's going to go up over time, the 100% funded. So we're going to have to then somehow be increasing that to maintain 100% over time, correct?
Yeah, I mean, two things are gonna happen here. Unfortunately, we're at the crest or whatever of GASB 45 ending, GASB 75 coming in, which is gonna put a larger liability on the books. And again, it's just on the books.
It doesn't
Our expenses that we're paying.
right,
we're paying the
wasn't
expenses that
GASB 45 though, where we were guesstimating around 10 million and we're guesstimating the 13 with GASB 75, or we're not even there yet?
Under GASB 45, we are right on the number right now.
With the 13.
6.5 million that matches the liability you have to put on the books. They changed the rules with 75. The CPAs of the world said, no, you're gonna have to put the full unfunded accrual, which is gonna go, and again, on last year's report, but now the assumptions are gonna change. I mean, if you read between the line on that letter, when I talked to the guy, and they got me back to me this afternoon, which was rather nice of them, that number is gonna go up. And that's just the new number that goes in the balance sheet. Then every year, that's probably gonna go up. I can't guarantee it, whatever, by
Right.
that 890
That's the
every year.
13 million number.
From there, it's gonna jump another 900 a year roughly.
Right,
On top of that. So we'll be fully funded based on that number, but then we need,
right.
we have to transfer, like, if we want to be fully funded next year, we have to move another 900 from the PCs account over.
Right.
And just what you're saying is if we spend less than we budget, we can put money in the account.
I'm
And
just
if we-
saying that we would then know exactly what we're paying each
Right.
year, and because you would see that number.
Yeah.
So instead of us guessing as to what our
I
annual
just gave you the
contribution is, what?
I just gave you the number, and I gotta give it to the auditor every summer. Between 400 and 550 is what we gotta pay, so what part? Well,
Right.
and again, the number that, the 13.8, this best guess was is gonna be more like 14.8, and then increase by $890,000 every year after that.
Right, so to maintain 100% funding
You'd have
in
to
that account,
raise
you would have to forget about what
$890,000.
you're putting in your operating for your current retirees. You would still need to be putting away another 6, 8, 900,000 to maintain the 100%. Am I?
Yeah, probably 7 more million day one, after they do their analysis this summer, then 890,000 every year thereafter.
And after we move that 7 point, if we
Are you
move it,
getting that?
Yeah.
and if we move that 7.2 from PSERS to get us fully funded in OPEB, that'll leave 1.6. So that
Right.
won't even cover us for 2 years. So we would stay fully funded for about a year and a half.
Right, but
Unless we're lucky and we underspend that line, is what Jess is saying, because if we underspend it, move that money into the account, right, out of the budget and into the reserve budget.
Yeah,
right, but
that's part of it.
But if I'm hearing Bill correctly, what he's saying is regardless of whether we underfund or overfund our current retirees in our current operating budget, we still are going to be short of full funding year after year because that is likely going to be going up.
And PSERS, we're $120 million in fully funded that. I mean, it's a luxury to be able to, I mean, it's nice to fund those liabilities when we can. The whole point is we've been able to, but we can't with zero now. But if the board decides that, that's what the board decides. And then if they start using that to pay those expenses, that's when you gotta start being careful.
This budget funds covers
the expenses for all
It just
retirees.
puts nothing else away. from
Doesn't put
the
away
Right.
to the
No extra
liability.
savings
That's
account.
right.
Well, on that, okay.
Our expenses for the year or next year are covered, it's just no more money in savings.
I understand this, it's just, there's a lot of questions.
It's very complicated.
Well, there's a lot of questions. I just want, I mean, going back to what Brian said, and I agree with you 100%. You said you had this for 63 minutes. I had it for less than that, you know? I asked Bill a request at 11:30 or something like that, and I couldn't get a look at it until I sat down here again. I don't like being unprepared for this stuff. But if any of you ask me to put something on the budget that's reasonable, I will put it on the budget. And if we're talking about teachers, I will put it on, on the agenda. And if we're talking about these teachers' retirement funds, that's important. So I consider, so I agree to put it here. Also, we don't have, which I'm against, we don't have a July workshop. You know, when are we gonna talk about this? So we need to talk about it now.
Well, it's best, in my opinion, it's best when you have real numbers.
Yeah,
So when
of course.
When they
agree
gotta
with
give
you.
me the numbers for the audit, that's why this is typically in October, because the board has more material to work with.
Yeah, but I'd rather get the background discussion out so that everybody understands what everything is and there's no questions. And then when we get the number, that's all we're waiting for in October, the number. You know what I mean? But everybody understands where everything's going. My own personal thing on this, I'd like to fully fund OPEB. I'd like to separately put that money aside. I'd like to draw interest on it and live some of our commitment every year off the interest as we talked last year.
We are.
You know? Oh, I'd like to continue that, and like you said, we're doing $100,000 interest on something. Well, if we doubled it, we're making $200,000 on it.
Yeah, but if we're making $200,000 interest, if we're upping the interest by $100,000,
It's just.
but
a
to
revenue
maintain
number.
100%, if our goal is to get 100% in one of these funds, to maintain 100% with, under Gatsby 75, from what I'm understanding, is we're going to be looking at a $400,000, $600,000, or $800,000 increase annually to maintain 100%. $100,000 extra in interest is not going to help us get there, and we are going to have a bigger hole than we have now.
It's not gonna hurt us getting there. I mean, if you wanna give me $100,000, I'll
We're
take
not
it.
getting an extra 100,000 in interest, because we're collecting interest on both accounts now.
Right.
So
Right, it's just where it goes.
Right,
Right, no, you're, yeah.
Yeah, on your revenue, interest goes into interest. It doesn't get split up by
Right.
what's in your fund balance, so to say.
Can I make a point?
Yes.
When the board first decided to commit funds to Peters, it was with the idea in mind that as our contribution rate continues to increase, we're going to reach a point where the percentage increase stops climbing every year. So we're gonna level out. And our thought process was, when we committed this fund, that we could take that fund, divide by 10, reduce our contribution to Peters, our out-of-pocket expenses for 10 years, and give the taxpayers a break. Because we have no choice. Whatever the contribution rate is, we have to meet that obligation in our general fund. So to eliminate the Peters committed fund balance means you no longer have that option. And we're gonna just have to come up with the money to pay whatever our Peters rate is. We have the opportunity to stretch out for like 10 years, maybe more, and lower the rate that we have to charge our taxpayers for Peters. That's the whole point of having that fund. I'm not sure I want to eliminate that.
I guess my response to that though would be that, and John, when I first joined the board, you were one of the first ones to really explain it to me though. So if we divide that by 10 years, I mean, at $9 million almost, you're talking about almost $1 million that we would be offsetting that for the taxpayers. But when the end of that 10 years is up, now we have a 2% hole in our budget because we've used that to offset that increase for a while.
Yeah, we
So-
actually did this on paper once.
Right.
When we didn't think it was gonna keep going up as much.
Right.
When you thought it was gonna level off.
Yeah, I mean, there is a point where you are gonna have to increase your contribution to that.
Right.
But you can instead of having to increase your contribution by $800,000, it's gonna be maybe $200,000. Because instead of increasing your contribution to that by 800,000, we'll only do 100,000, which is a big break to our budget.
Except
And the
when that money runs out though, you're still in the same hole. You still need to come up with that $800,000. You need to come up with it at some point.
I'm not saying to stop increasing your contribution to Peters. It still goes up every year for 10 years.
Right.
It just cushions the blow. It worked on paper.
So
Yeah, now-
why did you choose the $890,000 approach to settling the budget? Why did you choose that? I've never in all of our years seen that
Well, let's
approach.
back up right to the beginning in March.
Okay.
The one piece of paper we handed out, and I have copies here if anybody needs it. I had a bargain with the actuary for better rate. We had to eliminate 3 teachers, or not eliminate, not replace, just to get to the index. So really, I mean, if you were gonna keep everything all in, we were close to 4.5 or 5% of a tax increase that was needed. The state said to school boards, you can't raise it over 3.2. So it concerns me moving forward. We started at 4 to 5% this year, so it scares me moving forward how we're gonna balance budgets. And if it's 0 each year, it's gonna become very scary. But, so then when we had to come up with $1.5 million more, we went to, instead of the board cutting or recommending cutting positions or programs, we went to reducing budgetary reserve. We decided to try and find one-time purchases out of budgetary reserve from this year, so that there was another $225,000, and then the other $900,000, because you do not have to fund that liability. So it came down to cutting positions, cutting programs, or do not continue to increase funding the future liability. That's really what it came down to. Is that correct?
Whether, do we keep our programs and our people or cut them and put money in a savings account? We said, let's not put the money, if it's gonna be this tight, don't put money in the savings account because we gotta fund our annual expenses. Because remember, that 890 doesn't do anything for this year's expenses because we've already got that covered. That's just money in a savings account for the future. So when things are tight and we can't raise revenue because we can't raise taxes, then that's when you say, okay, there's no vacation this year. But I still gotta buy bread and milk in the annual operating budget.
Where did the 890 come from? How did you come to that figure?
This same company
Okay.
who gives me annually,
Okay.
we kind of take a gut feeling based on where you think it's gonna go. And it was 835 we put in the budget, but I believe the number, like if we were gonna continue to fund it, might be closer to 890, but when, a year ago, April, when we did 17-18 budget, 835 was the gut number, because you don't get the number until later. They gotta come in every 2 years. My office has to give them a bunch of demographic data on every person that works here from day one of employment. And they actuarially calculate these types of things. They don't make you pay for that every year. They make you pay for it every 2 years. But this year, because of the 45 and 75 thing, we don't have to do our end of it, but they have to do their end of it based upon assumptions that come from bond indexes. The thing I mentioned, or I put in there about retirements, giving them information, because a portion of the PSERS for the retirement has to do with health insurance as it relates to retirees. So they don't even have the numbers that they need to update our reports on. So I believe it's gonna stay between 8 and 900,000.
I think a real, we got the elephant in the room, yeah, so I might as well drop an elephant right now.
Maybe we need a second one now.
I've heard, yeah, we need a second elephant, definitely, maybe a pink one. I've heard from a few board members that they're really concerned that the teachers will feel that we are robbing, we're not fully taking care of them, or looking out for their interests. So I know there is concerns because, not to say anything about the newspaper with this kind gentleman here, but sometimes people read and misinterpret what's written in the paper. And sometimes the paper misrepresents, but sometimes people read into it what they want to read into it. So I think that there's people on the board want the public to know and want the teachers to know that we're committed to to them, and we're funding them. And our committed balance is 22.71% of our overall budget. And the Auditor General, Eugene DePasquale, however you say it, is basically saying in public and in print and to the Commonwealth Foundation, OWASH group, that his opinion is if you're over 20%, well, he suggests that's when he starts to get worried, and that's when he suggests districts start giving money back. But really what he's concerned about is the districts that are claiming bankruptcy. Meanwhile, they're holding 140 million in account, and they're asking for an exemption to go past the index. Those are the real abusers. Nobody's gonna walk into Delaware Valley and say we're abusing, but we are at that limit. And if we keep putting more money into the savings account, well, then our percentage keeps going up, 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 if we're not raising. And if we raise our budget, but we raise it by putting money into that account, the percentages just keep going up. So we need to spend some money. I don't know what you want to buy, but we need to either spend some money or dedicate this money out.
Well, one of the things you could do too is that going forward, as PSERS goes up and as OPEB costs go up annually, you could say, listen, whatever amounts we have in for OPEB and PSERS now, we're gonna stay there. And then if this goes up 50 and this goes up 100, then you take them from the accounts so that you're not building, you don't have to come up with more money in your annual operating budget. You supplement. And then, because that would last a long time if you're only dipping into it 100 grand at a time or something like that.
We're still over the 20. I mean, if we move the money from PSERS to OPEB and keep that at 100%, we're still over the 20%.
Right.
Yeah. We haven't changed the dollars, we just changed where they go.
Yeah, the other thing is you could take committed fund balance and transfer it, uncommitted, and transfer it to the capital fund. Because you're gonna need capital money. So, I mean, if you remember, we had the 5-year thing through 1920, it's pretty much all spent with CTE and the other programs, or the other things that are on that list. But that's another option, is to put it in the capital fund, because I know the board's gonna have needs when it comes to the capital, or the plan.
When I added in the capital reserve fund, we came out to like 28%. I know it's not considered technically a committed fund, but when you read this guy's reports, that's the very next thing. What he keeps saying over and over and over again, and what this foundation is saying, and those are the ones that actually asked them to investigate this last year. What they keep saying is, this does not include capital reserve. This does not include capital reserve. And when somebody keeps telling me that it doesn't include capital reserve, I know the next thing that's coming out of their mouth next year is, let's look at capital reserve. So,
Well, we're fortunate, that's gonna be almost zero.
And we're
so
gonna
that's
be
a good
using
thing for
that.
us.
So
Yeah,
that's
for
a
the
good
CTE
for us,
project.
exactly.
19 and 20 projects will exhaust them.
Has our audit ever had a comment on it referring to the fact that we were, that we had too much money in committed funds?
No, and it's a quandary, and yeah, it does make me nervous sometimes, but by the same token, you can't have the CPAs forcing all this, these GASB rules on our balance sheet, and then having the legislators, I mean, it's an identified liability, and then the legislators complain because you're trying to prudently plan for them. And so it does concern me that the legislators, you got really two, the GASB people are forcing this on us, and you got the legislators saying that we have too much, and this board diligently trying even to come up with the 14 million that we're trying to do. But all of those circles of things, it does make you nervous. I agree with Jack, it does make you nervous.
Yeah, because it's exactly the scenario you're saying, where you have the auditor, the accountant people wanting one thing reported, but then the legislature is putting this 20% on top of you. So how do you satisfy both? And that's what I said, it's gonna be a slippery slope from here on out.
Right, and when they're talking about fund balance, I'm always looking for the fine print, because there are districts that don't put it committed. Committed's a big word in the accounting world, the CPA world. You just hope it's still in the legislative world, because if it's committed for something, I mean, there are districts who just, they didn't do the diligence that this district did, and it's sitting in an unassigned balance, and you're right, and they're still asking for increases, and that's what happened down in suburban Philly, and they went to court. So
The only thing that does make me say transfer it into the OPEB, even, and John made very good points, is because of this unknown in Harrisburg of what's gonna happen. And I do not see anybody ever coming along the line and bailing out OPEB. But pieces, they're gonna have to bail out sooner or later. And I think the lower balance, whereas was the thinking when John and Pam and all the other members, their thinking at the time was great thinking, because it was responsible thinking to put money into pieces, to put money in. The problem now is that the minds outside of this district that are determining that, and they're gonna determine this bailout, are not the same responsible minds that we had on the board at that time. You know, they're irresponsible minds. So maybe now we need to, it's just a thought. Maybe we need to change our strategy, you know, where that strategy was great for then, maybe it needs to change now. Because I don't see, to tell you the truth, I don't even know how they're gonna bail out pieces. You know, where's the money gonna come from? We can't borrow our way out of this, and that's all I hear coming out of Harrisburg, you borrow our way out. It's not gonna happen. I just think the elephant in the room is that these teachers and stuff, because I've had people come up to me in the public that are teachers, that work for the district, and say, Jack, how would you propose that we took money from OPEB? And I said, I didn't propose that. The board didn't propose that. That came from the administrations. That was their proposal because they didn't want to cut something else. And this is money that we are paying for. So I know even our own teachers that work here, there's questions about it because they're nervous. It's their retirement, some of that, you know, they're medical. The one thing that can bankrupt a person really quickly in this country right now is medical expense. That can bankrupt you faster than anything else that's out there. And workers are worried about it, you know, so I just think there is that unknown. And I feel that some of the board members probably want to make sure that we completely fund this so that the asset of our school, the greatest asset is our teachers. They know that we are not trying to harm them and that we're looking after their money.
And if anybody asks you anything and they're confused by it, you can let them know that there could be no dollars in the savings account. And it doesn't impact them at all because we pay for it in our annual operating budget. So even if there was zero in the OPEB savings account, it doesn't affect anybody's retirement health care. Just if they get worried about that, we'll make sure they understand that. We just pay for it every year, just like we pay for our annual PSERS obligation through the annual budget. This is just a luxury we're very fortunate to have.
It's exactly it. It's not, I try to explain to the ones that have come to me, this is not a blame game. It's not like, well, the board did this, well, no, the administration did this. It's not a blame game. This is a good problem we have. We're arguing about luxuries, you know, or we're discussing about luxuries, you know?
Jack, I think the idea needs more discussion. I'd like to make a motion to table.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Stable. Hearing no objection, the motion carries.
You didn't ask for. I didn't say, sorry.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
You don't need to do a roll call, but you just said all those in favor.
You didn't ask for objections.
Oh, I didn't ask for objections? I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
Oh. Is anyone opposed? Yes.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I'm prepared to designate it, keep it as a, make it very definitive as to what it's to be for.
Well, we need to have a number. We have to have a number, and that,
What we already lost. I mean, it's already tabled.
I want to understand how we would maintain that. at
you can
100.
bring it up in other business. You can bring it up in other business and make a motion.
It's fine. I just want to make sure.
Anybody can make a motion to take an item off the table. And then if the majority agrees to take the item off the table, it's back up for discussion. So I just think we need more time to discuss it and get some options.
I gotta say, just publicly, I don't like when we don't have workshops. July, we don't have them. I think we're busy 24, I think we're busy 12 months out of the year.
We could also have a work session prior to a board meeting. We could have a 7 o'clock work session, and so that people don't have to come twice in the summer months. You know, we could do 7 o'clock work session and 8 o'clock meeting. Because in the middle of summer, there's not much to vote on.
Yeah, and it may or may not be a great idea, but especially with what Bill brought up about the future funding, we need more discussion on it. Yeah. And I don't think we have to do it tonight.
And we're not gonna have a lot of numbers for you in July either. You know, it's gotta be something we gotta have to deal with
Right.
in the fall when we know more. Then we're back into our regular schedule.
Okay. Hearing a few objections.
I'm gonna modify his script.
The motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of the 2017, 2018 budgetary transfers? See attachment.
Motion.
Second.
I yield my second.
Any discussion?
So the 225,000 from budgetary reserve is going to purchase these things.
Yes.
Is it one time, right?
These are one-time things.
One-time thing. Yeah.
And then so they stay out of next year's budget, which helps us keep it at 0.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. Letter C. I have an approval for the final adoption of the 2018-2019 Delaware Valley School District General Fund budget reflecting no tax increase at a millage rate of 110.71 mils with a balanced budget of revenues and expenditures of $81,940,585, which includes salaries and wages for existing employees, as presented as a budget supplement, and approval of the resolutions for a new annual tax levy, homestead and farmstead exclusion and transfer tax, 3 attachment. Real estate mills is 110.71, real estate transfer tax is 0.005.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? I try to keep my discussion until the end, but I've heard a lot of discussion about line items. I've heard a lot of discussion this week about that we have too many students in classes, that the classroom size is too big. I've heard that from a few different schools. I've heard a lot of people say line item stuff. My own line item stuff is I would take 10,000 from every school because of these copying costs. This is the age of computers, and we're a paperless society. I come up with $70,000 right there. The Hondo property that we sold, $1.5 million, that's up for bids as far as I'm concerned. We could take that at any time.
We're $1.5 million shy.
Yeah, well,
And capital reserve that if you take it back out of there.
We'll figure it out as we go, but you know what? I tap into that if I need to, and I've always said that, so. Those are the two things I'd say, but I've heard a lot about line item stuff, and people say that they wanted to do line items, and they wanted to do this, now is the time. If you want to discuss that.
Jack, I've got a comment, I'm gonna make it, and then I'm gonna shut up. I'm a no vote on this budget, and the reason is, if you look at the past 4 years, the percent that our budget increase has gone up, 14, 15, 15, 16, our budget increase was 1.35%. After that, 5.66, 349, now with the proposed budget, 0.92. So just over that 4-year period, we have an 11.42% increase in our budget. And currently, our revenues increased 10.28%. Bottom line, we're spending more than we're taking in. The difference between the budget and revenue increase is 1.14%, which doesn't sound like a great deal over 4 years. But reflected on an $82 million budget, that's $934,000. Now, on top of all that, the PA passed its House budget. Our budget for the basic ed subsidy was $14,361. PA House budget $14,327, We're short $33,000 there. Special ed state subsidy, our budget was 2.7 million. PA House budget, 2.69. You add all this up and we are short $44,816. I think that as a board, we're gonna either have to decide to spend less or increase our revenues. This is not sustainable in the long run. That's what I have to say.
I'd like to say something, Jack, and that is that I have a no vote on this budget for all of the reasons that John outlined. I heard from a number of people in the past week as well. I know we all do. We tend to focus our conversations about a taxpayer, but there are also property owners who I think ought to be considered in our fiscal responsibility. The property owners don't want to see the value of their property go down. And one of the major things that contributes to the value of our properties around here are the quality of the school district. John mentioned earlier, I was delighted to see Delaware included with Abington Heights and the other two schools districts in that grading report. And John pointed out that Dallas School District is not in there this year. They didn't make the cut. I teach in that community, not in the school district, but a lot of my colleagues have kids in that school district. And the reason they're having so many problems is because they were not fiscally responsible. They cut a few corners that they shouldn't have cut. And now look where they are. It's going to take a generation for them to recover. And we've got a terrific business manager who has given us sound advice for years. I think we should continue to do our budgeting along the lines that Bill outlines. And I think a 1.5%, a 2% increase solves some of these problems that we're trying to do all this hammering out new solutions. If we raise the taxes a couple percent, we could take care of a lot of that. I disagree that there are people who are going to object if we raise the taxes 1.5% or 2%. People come to expect that. It's a reasonable expectation. And that's what I heard from a number of people this past week. What do you mean? What's this going to do to our schools? You know, 1.5%, 2%. For a lot of houses, that would be a bottle of ketchup a month. We're not talking about thousands of dollars on your average homeowner. We're talking about a little bit of money to assure that we stay fiscally sound. And I think it's an example of being penny wise and pound foolish. In the long run, especially knowing the potential actions that the legislature might take, we need to have more foresight. And I think a 1.5 or 2% increase is what we should be looking at. And for those reasons, as well as what John very eloquently laid out, I'm a no vote on this budget.
I looked at the same figures that John looked at as to what the proposed state reimbursement test is going to be, and it is lower than what was proposed. The other thing that concerns me is that our transfer tax is we're not going to collect what we collected this year, and we upped it for next year. So chances are we're probably not going to collect it next year as well. I have a real problem with putting nothing into OPEB, and I feel like transferring from PSERS to OPEB is just robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's the same amount of money. It's just a matter of what fund does it happen to be in. And this board has worked very, very hard for many years to build up that PSERS account, and to watch it get cut like that, I think would make Jack Fisher would curl his hair. I think that considering the fact that you've mentioned that some teachers and the people in the public are concerned about class sizes, I can agree with, okay, we don't have the numbers right now to justify a third kindergarten, say in Chicola, but what if something happens over the summer? I think we need to have the $250,000 in budgetary reserve so that Dr. Bell has money there that if come August 25th, and it has come down to that in the past, if we need to hire another teacher, we can hire another teacher and not have 28 5-year-olds in the classroom, which is, yeah, you can say you can do it, but it sure isn't fun. And it certainly isn't to the caliber of education that we have come to expect in Tilbury Valley. We set very high standards for our kindergartners, and to put that many children in a classroom with some of the needs that they have is just totally, it's not really workable. And you can do it, you can cram them in there, but you're not gonna get the kind of results that we have seen in the past couple of years with the programs that we have implemented in that way. So I would be a no-go for 0%. I agree with, can't remember your name. Brian. I agree with Brian, that I think that most people would rather have a small, they can accept a 1.5 or something. Because what could happen next year is they could end up with, okay, we've got to go all the way to the cap. And that's a lot harder to bite. If it's a 1.5%, I think people are like, okay, I can do a 1.5. But when you have zeros for an extended period of time, I think that it's harder to see that big jump. That's my personal opinion.
Do we have class sizes that are too large? Are we concerned about that?
Not at the moment. I mean, we have in the upper grades, in speaking elementary, obviously, but in the upper grades, there are some that are 26, 27. There's one grade level that right now, if you look at it across the board, there are 27, 28 students in the class, but they're not there. Many of those students are students that are pulled out for self-contained classrooms. So they sit in the homeroom numbers and the attendance numbers in
But
that
they're not
homeroom,
there all
but they're
day.
not there all day.
But they're there for gym, and they're there for art, and they're there for music.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern, because I heard the free schools, I heard Chahola, I heard the primary school, I heard we had some high numbers, and I can remember when I went to school, back when we had ash floors, 30 was the number, and it was too much when I went to school, and now the level of education is so much more. So when I hit 27, 28, I get nervous, and I'm not an educator, so that's what I gotta ask, is that too much? But I did ask because I know in certain classes, in certain classrooms, a lot of those students are taken out for different things during the day, so in the inclusion classrooms and stuff like that goes on. And I've gotta ask the administration, but
And that's also why I said last week, please make sure you don't cut budgetary reserve, because we need to have that flexibility. If we have August enrollment that.
Our enrollment's fluid, and that's the one thing, and Rosemary makes a really good point, but she's a teacher, that's why, it's fluid, and yeah, what if we need, because I'm not comfortable to a 27, 28, I'm not an educator, but I'm not comfortable with it, because I ask people that are educators, both within this district and in a lot of other places. I have a lot of friends of mine that are educators, and he says, too much, Jack, it's too much, so it's gotta be a balance. But if we do need a teacher, we need to go out and get one, and we need to have that money to go get them. Having said that, I think we have the money to do that.
I have a question. DVES, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, how many sections are there?
3rd, 4th, and 5th for next year.
3, 4, 3.
I guess by grade. So 3rd grade this year, how many sections are there?
This year there's 4. Next year there will be 3.
And then 4th grade this year?
3.
And then 3.
They'll have.
And next year it'll be 4.
Next year it'll be 4, because that large grade can
That
go
class
Up, up, so the teacher moves with the grade.
So it'll be 3, 4, 3 next year.
Right. So this year in 5th grade, there were 89 students, which is an average class size of 29
No, there were 4 sections in 5th grade.
of this year. I'm sorry.
Correct.
So
And
that's
then next year,
22,
back down to 3.
Correct.
Okay.
average class of 22.
So that large class leaves, and that's that's the one position we save, because in order to get to 0, we cut 4 elementary teachers, positions, not teachers, position, one from each of the schools.
A few reasons why I'm a yes on this budget. We brought it up at the work session, and I'll have to repeat again. We've exceeded the Social Security COLA about 5% in the last 5 years, so we have to think about the seniors. That's a piece of the puzzle that we have to think about. Second, Jess brought it up at the workshop. I mean, this winter kind of devastated everybody, not just the normal taxpayer, but businesses. You just didn't get the revenue that they were expecting. I hear from business owners, I know the friends of the family, and everybody was hurting all around. Doesn't matter what industry you're in except for snow plowing, I guess. But everybody was hurting this year. And then, and we hear nationally, the unemployment rate's down nationally at 3 point. That's not the case for Pike County itself. We see free and reduced lunches going up. Our county's not becoming richer. The county's not. I mean, free and reduced lunches are going up. The unemployment rate's not going down in the county either. And I mean, you can point fingers, economic development, everything, you know, but that's just not the case. So I think that take now at this point just doesn't make sense for me.
My concern is taking OPEB out of the budget entirely. So for the same reason that, John, I know you're concerned about the 890 that we're going to have to add year after year on top of what we would transfer into OPEB, we're taking that out now. So we don't have that to put in. So I guess that was at least a little bit towards being able to meet that liability, and with taking that out, that makes me nervous.
But it's only meeting one liability while taking it away from another.
Yeah.
You know, it's particularly Rosemary said, having Peter to pay Paul. In all honesty, what needs to be done, and I think Jack tried to do it, and the storms in March kind of derailed his plans. But I think we need to approach the budget process differently going forward. I think we need to have each presentation provide us the budget ahead of time so the board can look at it and actually ask questions going through the presentation, instead of getting all these presentations and then you get to the end and you've got all this information you're trying to crunch. Maybe we have to have the hard discussions on, there's a lot of talk about sports specialists. Are they needed? Is that something that if you want your kid to have a specialist, should their parents be paying for it out of their pocket? So maybe we need to have those conversations, and maybe if the majority of the board feels, and Corey summed it up very well, that a zero is what we can certainly survive with as a school district, and what the community needs this time around, then we're not committing that fund to move the money, but we've got time to talk about it. And that means we also have time to go through line item by line item and do what we always talk about, you know, with the 8,000 here or 26,000 there, which usually Bill gets to, you know, he explains away anyway, and everything we find doesn't mean much. We need to do it as a group. We need to sit here and say, okay, why is this one this different? And that's the only way all of us are going to get to the point where we're confident one way or the other with the budget numbers.
You know, now that you mention it, we normally did those presentations in April. This year we did them in March, so you guys would have an extra month to go through.
Right.
What we could do, based on your points, we could give everything to you in March and have them come.
And then start.
Because then you'd have lead time.
I think that would
That's
be
more productive.
beneficial.
And then we don't have questions about sports budget 4 months later.
That's actually what I wanted to do. So say like, Dr. Farrell came here and she gave us her report. Well, I'd like to have that report a month ahead of time.
Right.
And then when Dr. Farrell comes, I can question her about
Right.
the report.
Right.
Because what's happening with it, and it's exactly what
She
Dawn
wants
said.
that,
that's-
yeah.
But that's what I wanted to do this year, but we kept losing work sessions. And, you know, it was brought up about, like, you said we could do a work session before meeting, but then that work session is only an hour, really. So it's not really a work session. And I think we've got 12 months a year worth of stuff to do. Not everybody can make it, vacations. I go on vacation too. Everybody knows I run away and hide up in Maine. But the majority of us can make it, you know. Whoever can make it, can make it. I think we should be doing more work sessions for this reason.
Why do you think we have to reorganize how we do it? Because we have this year we did 2 full work sessions for budget. We did the whole March one, which normally is in April, and we did the whole June one. That was a second chance to go through everything. But if we give you the stuff in March and then have the directors and supervisors come at the April one, that'd be great, because then you have all that lead time to do your homework, and then you can get your questions at the front end instead of the back end.
Whoever's sitting there next year might have a different idea of how they want to do it. That's how I wanted to. The weather didn't cooperate. But, you know,
But the $890,000 elimination, fund elimination from OPEB really had me concerned, because that's something we have never done, and that was rather shocking to me. I thought you did a very fine job tonight of explaining that in no way, if my understanding is correct, in no way does eliminating $890,000 from OPEB affect our staff benefits in any way. That also tells me we had $890,000 to work with. So we used it to bring this budget to a zero. You didn't come to us and say, I'd like to eliminate this, or I'd like to eliminate that. You felt that taking those $890,000 OPEB funds was sufficient. Like I said, it was rather shocking to me, and I was prepared to consider a tax increase. There are some things I feel that we do need in this district. A couple of things we haven't really discussed, and I'll bring that up in a minute. But you have convinced me that with a zero budget, we are not affecting the teachers' benefits. So I was prepared to look at line items, because I do think we need to have some math coaches in this district. If you go in and look at our scores, high school, it plummets. We're doing okay. We're improving in some areas in our elementary school, but we're not doing enough, I feel, to reach the kids in the higher grades. I would like to see math coaches, not only in the elementary school, but also in the middle school. I've attended meetings where I've seen the effects of not having, in my opinion, sufficient approaches to math. I don't feel that it has anything to do with our teachers' abilities. I think it's a product of our environment, the world that we live in. When I try to help the students at our center with the math we're using now, I'm stuck. You're not the only one. And I wasn't always the strongest in math, but I try, I study, I go online, I'm looking at all of the things that have been suggested through the year at the meeting at Matamoros. It's still difficult, and it's difficult to explain that to the parents. So how are we going to improve our math scores? That is my question. So I would like to look at either having a little increase to cover those costs, or eliminating something that somebody feels is not necessary in the budget. So we haven't had any of that discussion, and whether it's weather related, whether it's not wanting to come forward and discuss these things, I don't know. So I do support having a future budget process where we delve into things a little more.
And I don't
involved.
think, I'm sorry if I jumped into part of you. I don't think it's something that has to wait until March or April of next year. If we want to have a workshop in the summer when things are less busy, to just sit down and go through it, have a better understanding. Maybe we need a math coach. Have a better understanding of the budget. Yeah, I'm getting dirty looks over here. But no, in all honesty, and if there are those different positions and things that we see that some of us are concerned about, do we need this? And maybe we need something somewhere else. Maybe it'll all wash out in the laundry. But I think that's where we're going to find that 800,000 one way or the other.
And years ago, I was involved in a conversation with Jack Fisher, and God bless his soul, Tim Allwine from PSBA. And we had an entire discussion for about an hour on transferring $6 million into the PCERS account. We had an overage that was almost $6 million. We had an overage that year. I don't remember why we had so much money, whether funds came in from the state or we just underspent. I don't recall. But we made the determination at that time with 6 votes that if something arose in the future that would require that money to make an improvement in this district, we would, if any of us were left, would consider that. So for me, I feel that protecting that OPEB fund was very important, because I was worried that it was being unprotected. So we do have to protect PCERS also, John, and we worked hard, and a few past board members have also. So, we're caught between a rock and a hard place, but what's really great is that we're having this discussion, and we are moving forward with another new vision. We're looking at things in a different way. I agree that there will be a bailout of PCERS, and just like we had all-day kindergarten long before any other school district, and we never benefited from the funds that came down. And there have been other instances also. And I feel there's that possibility in PCERS that if there's a bailout, we protected the money we've had it there, we're not gonna benefit. So I don't know, I'm not a visionary, but my experience does teach me some lessons. So the fact that we can discuss this, I think is wonderful, and I do look forward to us, however we're gonna do this. I don't wanna put this off until October. I would like for us to consider all of this and be prepared.
Okay, my view of this. If right now, we all sat and changed our minds and we did a 3.2% budget increase, what we would do is put that money back into the OPEB savings. That's what we do, we fund it. So this budget doesn't harm teachers, students, doesn't take programs away, which is why you put it in, which is understandable. You didn't want to hurt programs, you didn't want to cut teachers, you didn't want to do this, so you put it here. So if we all sat here tonight and said, you know what, forget zero, we're all going to max, 3.2. If that's the max, right, 3.2? Yeah. All we would do is put that money into OPEB, which we've already said tonight, we have too much. We have too much in the OPEB. It's fully funded. We fully fund it every year, plus we put more into savings. And it raises that percentage. So now we'd be up, instead of 22.71, we'd be up to 24. In actuality, when Rosemary says, you know, she'd like to pay for extra teachers, I agree with it too. So if we need these teachers for our kids, money's gotta come from somewhere. But I said earlier, we're at 22%, 22.71, and we should be at 20. And there's money sitting there if we need these teachers. It's sitting there. Because I just said before, we need to spend money. We need to buy something if we want to drop the percentage down, you know? I mean, what this guy's actually saying is, if you're above 20%, he wants you to give it back. To give it back. Well, we're not abusing it. He's not, when he says that he wants schools to give it back, he's not talking about us. Nobody's going to come in and say we're abusing this system. There's a whole line, 500 schools. I went through them. We're so far down the list. Everybody's going to get accused of abuse before we do. That's where we're at. So I don't see the point of going to 3.2 because all we'd be doing was be raising that percentage up, putting it into OPEB, which we've already said tonight. We don't need the money in there. We have enough. We have more than enough. It's fully there. And on the other point, I'm going to say, there's people in here that are in our community that are affluent. They can afford tax increases, and there's people that can't, and there's people that are in between, in the middle. But what I will say is, in 2 years, our greatest asset is going to come looking to us for a new contract. And we're going to have to go and get some money to fulfill that contract. Because union people like myself don't go for no raises. We don't stay the line. We want a raise. Our cost of living increase. So we're going to have to look at that because that's coming down the line. This contract is almost out, you know? And how much can you get from the taxpayer that's struggling or the taxpayer that doesn't have it? You're going to have to, if you hit them now, you might not be able to hit them later, you know? Certainly the ones that are more affluent, you can hit them as many times as possible. But we hit everybody equally in this tax increase. So, you know, that is coming down the line. That is coming. So I'll go with zero here because to put money into the budget right now would cause us more problems. We're not cutting any teachers. We're not cutting any programs. We're not cutting things. In actuality, if we need more teachers, I'm 100% in favor of it. And I'd be 100% in favor of taking some of that extra money and paying for these teachers. Because we can't skimp on that. So that's just my opinion, and I'll shut up.
And I would just like to expand your comment that our community just sustained one of the harshest winters. I mean, look what we endured. Imagine being a community business. You still had to open up. You still had to pay the expenses of hauling away the snow and so forth. And you didn't have taxpayers to help you do it. So I think I'm thankful that you came up with the OPEB. I really, truly am because like I said, I would support an increase. Not to say something, I have supported tax increases many years. I still get elected. And I supported zeros. I still get elected. Because people do trust my opinion. But I do my research. And I trust what you're telling us. And you restored that trust in me tonight. But I also feel that it's more businesses, it's more than a ketchup bottle when you look at and see what the main, biz taxpayers are paying. It's a lot for them, considering what the income that they've had this winter. So if we're gonna have to raise taxes next year, most likely to get ready for our upcoming contract, let's hope for a good winter, and let's hope that our community has a good summer.
And a good GDP.
Yeah.
Well,
And it's looking good, so I have a good feeling for next year, and I agree, you can't just keep doing zeros.
Bill, who determines what the cap is on a given year?
It's done by index. The Department of Education does it. It's based upon state average weekly wage and some national raises for elementary school teachers. I don't know the exact word. There's some factor they do.
Mhm.
And then that comes out in September
I mean, my
by
concern,
Department of Education.
part of my concern with the zero is that a year from now, what if we need to raise more than the cap? Or 2 years from now,
We'll
with a
have
new
to go to
contract?
referendum.
Yeah, yeah, and
Public will
and
let
we know
you know.
how those things work in New Jersey.
Well, that's when you're gonna have to start spending the reserves.
Yeah.
You know, because that's our fallback. If we get to a point where, wow, we need enough revenue to raise equal to 4%, and the levy or the index is only 3.2, then you're gonna have to start dipping into reserves.
So the OPEB, at this point, if we contribute nothing to it this year, then it's pretty much frozen at whatever level it is now. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, when we have $2 million, we start the budget process we need for salaries and benefits. If it's not, we will, I can't imagine how we'd be able to afford to get this back in the budget. To increase the liability piece.
So it would just kind of be, at this point, it would just be frozen until, and hopefully we would never have to use it. That's the dream.
That would be great.
Okay.
I predict, like John said, we're gonna have to start using fund balance. Because the way we had to get to the budget this year, we don't have the 890 to go to next year is the
Right.
kind of the bailout, so.
And we had the 890 to go to this year. We had the 300 in the settlement with Highmark Healthcare, Blue Cross. We cut 4 teachers. I mean, we did a lot of stuff that are one-shots that we won't have next year.
One thing that I really like about what Jessica said about the pass-through account is right now, if you put in 890 and you use 700, you got 190 left at the end of the year. Well, that 190 trickles down, and what we do is we normally move that into capital reserve.
Right.
So as money you're dedicating to OPEB,
Right.
to medical care,
Right.
actually goes to maybe pave a parking lot.
Right.
Or
But we won't be doing that.
no, with Jessica's idea of the pass-through account, anything that's not spent goes into the savings. And anything that's short, if we say 890 and it turns out, God forbid, these retirees have some medical issues and it's $1 million, well, we gotta take out of there too. But I like having it that it funnels only through OPEB and money that's dedicated to OPEB expenses stays in OPEB expenses. And I think that's the best way to protect the employee, But I do just want to say one other thing before we end here. Before it continues, I really appreciate everybody being civil this year, and really, it's. I've tried my best too, because I've been guilty in the past, and yeah, I've been.
Always hold the mirror.
I've been cantankerous, unreasonable. I'm trying to grow in this. This is not something I ever thought I'd see myself doing. I'm trying to grow in it. So, I appreciate your tolerance and your patience for myself, but I also appreciate the way everybody's approached this. And when people say to me, and I say to teachers, your stuff is funded 100%. I don't go to them and say that Jack O'Leary did this, because I really didn't. It was the Pam Luffy's, it was John Robleski's, it was the Bob Goldsacks, the John Capellas's. People that came before me did this. This is not of my doing. And I really do appreciate it because they put me in a really nice spot. But people say, thanks, Jack, for doing this. And it's like, Jack didn't do this. I was done way before I ever sat on this board. So that's the last I want to say. Julie's done? Good. What do you guys say, Julie?
No. Put her on the spot, make her nervous.
And I've heard a lot about line items, I threw line items out. I'm sure no teacher wants me cutting, no principal here is happy about me cutting $10,000 out of your budget for copying costs, but I'll stand up and say that I would do that. Dr. Bell is not happy when I say, I'd be on the property down there, I'll take the 1.5 million, no problem. You know, so I've actually said line items, and it's just funny that I didn't mention line items at all. But I heard line items mentioned, so if we're gonna mention line items, let's talk about line items.
Do you wanna?
You wanna talk about line items? I'd love to hear
What
what
are
line
line
items.
items paid for though? I mean, I don't.
Maybe the extra teacher, maybe the extra teacher. Where can, I'm always interested in hearing, where can we find extra money? I'm always interested in hearing it, so if people have these line items,
I'd ask you to save your rabbits for next year, because next year's budget's gonna be even harder. And we're gonna need every rabbit you can find. Because we're going up another, when you're 80% staffing, 80% of your budget staffing, that's an expense that keeps growing. So every year, we gotta keep finding that money. We work miracles now, let's save some for next year.
well, you can mention things and John Bell won't hold it against you. He'll be mad at you. The question has been called. So, I ask the recording secretary to do a roll call vote, please.
Dawn Bouquet,
Yes.
Brian Carson,
No.
Jessica Decker,
Yes.
Corey Homer,
Yes.
Pam Lutfi,
Yes.
Jack O'Leary,
Yes.
Alicia Sheehan,
Yes.
Rosemary Walsh,
No.
John Robleski.
No.
6 yes, 3 no, motion carries.
We promised to spend it like it was our own.
I'm sorry, I am so confused right now.
Other business.
Can I go right to number 12? Bear with me a minute. These blueprints I have them spread out all over the place.
Other business announcements.
Okay, other business from the board.
Did we do the appointments already?
Is there any other business from the
We
board?
did?
Yeah, we went reverse. We jumped to them and then we went back to.
I thought we just did the designations. I didn't think we did the appointments.
No, you did all of them.
I would know though.
Space.
I thought we were waiting to approve the budget so that we could make the appointments.
That was the
I thought
original
that
plan,
was-
but he was confident the budget was gonna pass, I guess.
Okay.
I do have
I
a
didn't,
question.
you guys on this truth, Rosemary? I didn't think that far ahead. That's the honest answer.
Julie put it on a note. We're putting the, you know.
That's the honest
the-
answer.
The
So we went-
approvals before the, anyway.
We might have had a new school psych hired and fired
Yeah,
within
exactly.
20 minutes. So.
I mean, I'm in trouble. I walk into my kid's school tomorrow, whether it be the middle school in September, whether the middle school or Mrs. Olson's elementary school, and they're running a knife in the copy machine for me, you know? As the guy that wants to take it away.
You'll be running down the
Well, on
funding.
that note,
And I can say, I didn't get a note on that home. That's because you voted against my copy machine. Other business from the public.
No, the board first.
Well, yeah, I did, okay, the
I'm
board.
sorry, did I miss, if I
No,
missed it, I
you're
apologize.
fine. You're in,
I missed
you're
a
in.
whole bunch of voting.
Okay. I do have a question under approvals, under Q. Is that the correct date? Remainder of the 2017-18 school year? So we're
Yes,
talking
it was
about a
retro,
week?
it was retroactive back to the day of the offense.
Can we go into executive
Yeah,
session?
I would like to just, I think it would be better.
You can. We already voted on it, and we discussed it last week, remember it was
Well, we
retro.
didn't adjourn yet, so.
Indicate that-
It's contrary to something we were told, so I think. But maybe you could clarify it.
Sure.
We will.
Standard executive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
An executive session with brownies?
With brownies, yes.
There's brownies.
We will-
It's really
we
just
will
an
adjourn
opportunity.
into executive session to discuss a student issue, and we will be returning. We have to return. to amend previous letter Q, expulsion of student 2017-2018, 1000428 for the remainder of the 2017-2018 school year and the beginning of the 2018-2019 school year for a total of 90 days with the right to reapply after 40 days. 45 days, sorry.
So.
Second.
Any discussion? There's no discussion.
John, that was the agreed upon, that was agreed upon previously.
Yes.
So the record should reflect that this is the actual agreed upon, let's call it punishment between parents and the administration.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion carries. And we're back to Jeff looking for stuff.
Announcements?
Okay, thanks. Is there any other business from the board? Is there any other business from the public? Announcements and meeting schedule, July 2018. July 12, 2018, regular meeting, 7 PM, Delaware Valley Administrative Offices. Does anybody want to entertain coming in an hour early to work on this?
Yes.
Okay, so we advertise a work session on July 12th from 6 to 7 PM and then a regular meeting from 7 PM onward.
Can we say with the regular meeting followed, but do we have to say 7 o'clock? When we advertise?
No.
Like, can we, if we do a work session at 6 o'clock and then same date, can we just say as, follow?
Follow, but what's the work session on, I'm sorry,
Work sessions, we're gonna talk more about this type of stuff.
but don't you want better numbers?
We have nothing to give
Meaning
you.
I have no year-end numbers on fund balance, I don't have.
I understand that.
We're gonna
I
be,
think we should still have a work session, even if it's not just about this, but then we can talk about the handbooks.
I was gonna say
There's
handbooks.
other pressing things I think that we need a work session for.
We said we were gonna have a committee meeting.
Yeah.
So we may,
So we can
we
do
may do that.
July
You
12th,
advertise
start
it?
at 6, and then the things we'll put on the agenda will be the handbook issues, and then we can talk about the reserve, the committed fund line items.
Correct, it's July 12th, it's not, it's the
And
second,
the committee meeting will be.
Second.
Yes, we only do one meeting, one night in July and one night in August, and then when school starts, we go back to 2 nights a month.
but I mean, it's July 12th, not the 19th.
Right.
Okay, so the July 12th workshop meeting will start at 6 PM. And the regular meeting will start at the conclusion of the workshop.
And you're going to advertise
Yeah.
that, so probably a half hour, that would be for a committee meeting, that hour prior to the meeting.
Well, we're just gonna make the whole work session about handbook and the OPEB. So you have, we won't put anything else, we don't have anything else for you, so you can have the whole work session.
Okay, so then we don't need a committee.
So you don't, yeah, there could be a committee of the whole.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So take those handbooks,
Yeah, after that.
take those handbooks and look for those changes you wanted under that one specific
Right.
topic, and then
Yeah.
we'll hash it out.
I think that's good.
What is the committee meeting about?
The handbooks.
Yeah, so we'll just do it at the work session.
Okay.
And then if we need a second meeting for just the committee, then we can add,
We can add it.
put that in
Right.
there
Sure.
to approve and to
All right.
advertise that.
Dr. Blum, can you be there on July 12th or you away?
I will be there, no problem.
Because you wanted to be a part of that committee.
Yes, please.
And I think you'd be an integral part of it. Yes, please, I'd like more.
Now you're not allowed.
Very enthusiastic.
When it says superintendent or designate, he's the designate.
All right. We're done with that. May I have a motion? I'm not gonna get in the head, but you're kidding. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Don't be too
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?